Hi everyone, thanks for joining in. I'm excited to have Clare Fletcher joining me. Hi Clare.
Hi, Jackie. Thanks for having me.
So Clare was born and raised in St George in regional Queensland and studied journalism and business at QUT in Brisbane. After graduating, she moved to Sydney for an internship at the Walkley Foundation for Journalism and has been there ever since, with the exception of a couple of years spent freelancing and falling in love with New York. Clare currently manages communications for the Walkley Foundation and is working on her second novel. In 2019, she completed the Year of the Novel course at Writing New South Wales with Emily Maguire, and in 2021, her short story Death's Waiting Room won the Body in the Library category at the Scarlet Stiletto Awards. Clare lives in Sydney with her husband and daughter, and her latest book is Five Bush Weddings. I don't know if you can see my copy without it disappearing. Maybe that, yeah.
It's the wrong color for a green screen background. Yeah, I can see
And
mine.
yeah, that's a lot easier to see than me trying to share. And also, I just wanted to mention to people watching that thanks to Penguin, if you have any questions for Claire, please type them in comments and I can read them out, and you'll have a chance to win five bush weddings. So thanks again, Claire, for joining us.
No worries. I hope everyone's having a nice Saturday evening or whatever time it is, wherever you are.
Yeah, because we do have people from different parts of the world. So, just wondering if you want to start off by telling us a bit about Five Bush Weddings.
Yeah, of course. So Five Bush Weddings. I've got it right next to me, so I'll hold it up again. It's a romantic comedy. It's seen sort of through the eyes and the lens of a wedding photographer. Her name is Stevie Jean. She's in her early 30s. And she's starting to feel maybe a little bit left behind. She's very single, which is obviously in great contrast to her job, where she's really good at capturing other people's love stories. But she hasn't had the kind of love story or the life story that she thought she would by this point in her life. And meanwhile, her best friend and housemate is starting to move on with her life. She's met a guy that she's settling down with and threatening to move out of their share house. Her mum has started online dating and is having more success than Stevie ever did herself. And her long-term ex-boyfriend has just recently got engaged to a younger woman who has just asked Stevie to shoot their wedding. So all of these things are throwing her into a bit of a spin. And she is thinking it might be time to kind of grow up and get serious. And meanwhile, her old friend, Jono West, a friend from her uni days, has just arrived back in the neighbourhood. He's been in the UK for a few years and he's had to come home to kind of face his responsibilities and take over the family property. Stevie and Jono meet up again in the first chapter, and it's pretty clear that they've got some great chemistry, but they would both be very quick to point out that nothing has ever happened between them because Jono's best friends with Stevie's ex, Tom. So over a year of weddings, they keep bumping into each other. He's often the best man at weddings that Stevie's shooting. And yeah, hijinks ensue. There's lots of weddings, so lots of different explorations of love stories. There's a love triangle, which is a lovely common trope for a rom-com. Yeah, lots of laughs and lots of fun along the way.
Yeah, and have to mention that I've read it and really loved like the comedy in it. It was really great.
Oh, good. So tell me, Jackie, did you recognise, like, if you were at a wedding reception on the dance floor and men started dropping their pants when Eagle Rock started to play, would you know what was happening, or would that
No,
be?
because yeah. Is that more a Queensland thing, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's pretty well understood in Queensland, but sort of the
Mm,
further you move away, when I talk to people from New South Wales, it's about 50-50.
yeah.
Sorry, if you can
Well,
hear
and
my daughter losing it.
I'm originally from New Zealand, so
Yeah, yeah. Western Australians, Victorians have no idea, and I would
yeah.
imagine New
Yeah,
Zealand is much the same.
I'd never even heard about it until I was reading your book. Yeah. Yeah.
It really flowed out when I started writing. It was literally the first thing I wrote of the
Mm.
draft of the book, and it's barely changed,
Oh,
from
really?
first draft to publication. But I was interested to see whether the publisher would want to keep it because I guess it's
Mm.
pretty niche. But to me,
Mm.
it puts you straight in the scene of a place that's kind of familiar, but also maybe not what you're used to.
Yeah. So something you would have seen often at weddings?
Yeah, weddings, 18th, 21st,
Okay, yeah.
general parties, the pub after a certain hour.
Okay.
It's, yeah, you never quite know when it's going to happen, but it happens for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
And a wedding photographer, why that? Is that something you had experience with or someone you knew who was a wedding photographer?
Oh, I mean, I think I approached it in a pretty mercenary way. I had always wanted to write a book and I just had never really got around to it. And unfortunately, it doesn't happen by accident. You have to actually make some effort. And so I sort of deliberately decided that I was going to try to write a book. And I thought I had read that romance had a pretty formulaic structure. So I was like, well, this is something I can Google and just try to bash it out and see if I can actually finish writing the book. And so when I was thinking about romance and love, thought wedding photographer, it's a character that is in the thick of the action on wedding days, but also they don't have a personal stake, so they're separate enough to be able to observe these kind of family dynamics and people under quite a bit of stress and pressure, and often people who've had a few drinks on a high stress day, so they can sort of be removed enough to appreciate the humour of the situation. Yeah.
And I wanted to say about the cover, like I love the picture on the top of the cover there.
Yeah.
I actually remember as well, probably some time ago, Penguin ran a sort of survey, I think, for your cover, didn't they? Because I remember voting for it. And I remember at the time when I saw the different covers and I thought, oh, that looks like it would be an interesting book.
Yeah, that was really funny. I mean, I was following Penguin on Instagram at the time, and they had told me they were doing research, but I saw the Instagram story, and I think it was, help us choose a cover for a debut novel. I was like, oh, that sounds interesting, and then I realised it was my book, and I was like, ooh, I'm just going to back away slowly. But yeah, it's interesting. They really wanted to have gumboots on the bride on the cover, and I just I couldn't put my finger on it. I was like, it just doesn't feel right. The book is completely set in drought. Not one person at any of these weddings would have been wearing gumboots.
Yeah.
And then I I had a couple of old friends from high school who do both sort of live and work on the land, and were really my, I guess, kind of sensitivity readers to make sure I was getting all of the farming and bush details right. And I sort of said, I don't know, gumboots doesn't feel right to me. Like, what do you think? And they were like, oh, no one in the bush even owns gumboots because it jinxes your chance of getting any rain.
Yeah.
So that was a really nice ammunition to go back to the publisher and say, well, what if we had cowboy boots instead? And if you really want the colour, and the colour looks so good.
Yeah, I love the cover. Yeah, the colour, yeah.
They can be red cowboy boots.
Yeah. And no, it's a great cover, and I'm sure people seeing it in the shops and that would be drawn towards it.
Well, and the florals are so beautiful as well. I think a lot of the concepts that they tested for the cover had florals. One was even just like a full floral design. Yeah, it's nice to see the native flowers. There's even a bit of cotton in there. So,
And we've got quite a few people watching, so just wanted to remind people watching that thanks to Penguin, if you type a question in comments, you'll have a chance to win a copy of 5 Bush Weddings. So I've got a few questions from some people. Kim wonders, where did you get the inspiration for the story?
That's a great question, Kim. Thank you. As I said, I kind of had the idea that a wedding photographer would be a good protagonist, but I do have to say probably the big inspiration for the story was going to my younger sister's wedding. I've been telling this story a lot lately. I think she's fine with it. But basically, if you read the book, the first chapter, that wedding is a little bit similar to my sister's wedding.
Okay.
She had been with her partner for a long time. I think it was almost 10 years by the time they were actually getting married, and so it was a really beautiful day to see them finally tie the knot. But they had the wedding in sort of her husband's area where he had grown up, and so the wedding was at this beautiful little church in Cecil Plains that hadn't had a wedding there for, I think, since like the 90s or something. It had been a really long time because it's quite a small community. And then they did the reception on his parents' cotton farm, and it was really beautiful to me to see the way the community came together around that wedding. So, you know, we all worked together to clean out the shed where they were going to have the dinner. The caterers were family friends and they were using meat from their property. It was the local Lions Club who ran the bar, and all of the wait staff were teenagers from the town. And, you know, Elle's mother-in-law had worked for months to get her garden looking green and beautiful for the reception and for the photos. It just really drove home to me that, you know, a wedding, especially in the bush, isn't just about two people getting married. It was not just about two families coming together. It's a whole community around them. And I think, especially in the country, and I didn't realise this when I set out to write the book, but it became clear to me as I got further into it. You know, these aren't just little love stories. They're not trite. They actually have a really big impact on the towns and the communities. You know, having someone young and enthusiastic and energetic fall in love and commit to that town, start a family there, actually has a really big impact on that town for many years to come.
Yeah, I really like the community feel and all that. Yeah, it was great. Rainey says, what a great storyline for a book. She'll love reading this, she's sure, and she's just added it to her to-be-read list. She said she definitely needs to read a great romantic comedy. And Belinda says, have you had many people telling you their funny stories from weddings? That's a great question, Belinda.
It is a really good question. And yes, I think I actually did a call out in the first year that I was writing the book on Facebook, just to ask my friends if anyone had any good stories, just for like little details that I could add. So there are a couple of little things throughout the book that I had heard from other people. And then even lately doing interviews and things, I did a radio interview this morning with this guy, Tim in Bathurst, and he obviously was like quite a long-standing radio DJ, and he told me he had done about 100 weddings as an MC and a DJ.
Really?
So he knew, like, yeah. And I think it's quite similar to a photographer.
Stories.
He had some stories. He was like, hang on the line after we finish the interview, I've got stories. And he was saying, you know, he had seen weddings where the groom took off with one of the bridesmaids and just all kinds of things. Yeah, but you know, things like the caterers not turning up, or I don't know, so many stories. Someone told me a story that was really beautiful the other day about how everyone was snickering in the church because the groom was wearing brand new shoes, and you know, they're kneeling on the pews, and everyone, not even on the pews though, at the front of the church, and he was kneeling and everyone could see the price stickers on the soles of the shoes.
Okay. I've heard of people writing on the shoes, but I haven't heard about the price. Yeah, I've seen people writing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think everyone has, well, most people have a fond or a funny memory from weddings, so it has brought out some fun stories.
I'm actually planning my wedding for later, well, in December this year, so I'm hoping that not too many funny things
I wouldn't use this as an instruction manual.
No, exactly, yeah.
Well, congratulations, and I hope you have a lovely day.
Thank you. I hope I don't end up in anyone's novels.
Well, you know, even when things don't go right, and they rarely do, I guess it could still be memorable and special.
Exactly, yeah.
I find it really interesting, you know, social media is a thread through this book. You know, there are Instagram posts from Stevie, and there are also WhatsApp posts from another character that we haven't really talked about yet. But I find it really interesting how social media plays in with weddings now. You know, I think for a lot of people, their wedding is kind of their almost celebrity moment, and they're capturing a lot of content on that day. And so I guess for them, the wedding is really a way to kind of assert their identity or say who they are through a lot of the choices they're making for how they celebrate. And it puts a lot of pressure on them and the people around them. And I think, it's the gap between the expectations of what that day will be and what it
Yeah,
actually is
yeah.
rife and great fun of the humour, I think.
And Geraldine says she's looking forward to your audio book. Um,
Ah,
she wonders what sort of research you did for your book.
that's a great question. And I want to say I haven't listened to the audio book personally, but I've had a lot of friends who have, who really enjoyed it. They have two actors doing the audio book. There is a woman called Cassie and a guy called Cameron, who's actually Margot Robbie's
Okay.
brother.
That's probably quite often it's usually only the one, isn't it? So that's probably a little
Yeah,
bit
well, there's sort of
different.
the two perspectives of Stevie and Jono in the book. So I thought it was really lovely that the engineers made that decision to have the two actors. So yeah, check that out if you're an audiobook fan. But in terms of research, I followed a lot of wedding and particularly bush wedding photographers on Instagram, which made my feed really beautiful. And they're mostly women. They work really hard. I think if you've ever watched a wedding photographer at a wedding, or anyone doing a shoot of portraits for families, it's hard work. And I guess even what you see shooting in the moment is kind of the tip of the iceberg of all the work that they're doing in terms of editing and making those photos look beautiful. Apart from that, it was there's a lot of driving in the book. I think it makes it really clear kind of the vast distances that people are travelling in country Queensland and New South Wales. So I was on Google Maps a lot, working out like how long it would take to get from one town to another. And the photography stuff, I did a bit of Googling. In my day job, I've been lucky to get to see a lot of work of like Australian photojournalists. So I've put together exhibitions of their work and got to read and hear their stories of how they took photos. So I think that gave me a bit of grounding in how photographers work and how they might see the world. But I did ask a woman who's a journalist and a photographer to read through the manuscript for me and just make sure I had the details right.
Yeah. And had you got it pretty right the first time, or did you have to change it
Yeah,
up?
pretty much. There were some little things, and there was something like, I think I had a wedding reception sort of in the middle of the day, and she was like, no photographer would ever shoot wedding portraits in the afternoon sun. Like it would never happen in the middle of the day. You just wouldn't do it. So I had to move things around a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've got quite a few people saying how much they love your cover. Wendy and Rainey, and I think Belinda all said how much they love the cover. Belinda wonders what you're working on at the moment.
Yeah, I'm working on another romantic comedy. It kind of takes place in the same world and after the events of Five Bush Weddings. I wouldn't call it a sequel because it'll be background characters from Five Bush Weddings become the main characters in this next story.
Yeah, that's interesting because Wendy also wondered if we will see any of the people from Five Bush Weddings in a future book.
Yeah, I think it was interesting to have people read it and kind of ask what happened to other characters after the end of this story, and that sort of got me thinking about it. I think I heard Mail Linnell refer to it as, now I can't remember the word. It's like an unconnected series, or there's a special word for a series where you don't necessarily have to read the books in sequence to understand. But yeah, same world, different main characters, and one of them is kind of going back into history a little bit. So
really? Okay.
Present day, and I've been doing some research into like debutante balls and bush dances in the 60s.
Yeah. No, that sounds interesting. Yeah. So how far along are you with that?
I'm a fair way along. It's due with the publisher sort of at the end of the year, and I'd say I'm like 80-90% there on the first draft.
Okay.
I just want to make sure it's really, really good.
Yeah. And Kim wonders if there's any other professions that you might use in future books.
My agent had lots of suggestions for this and thought like a florist would be good. Actually, after talking to Tim, the radio DJ, this morning, I'm thinking a wedding DJ would actually be a
Yeah.
great one,
Yeah.
or a wedding band.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, weddings aren't going to be a huge focus so much in the next book. To me, it's more about exploring the communities and the people that live in the bush, the different things that take them there and make them stay. And yeah, looking at relationships and I guess why people make the choices that they do.
Yeah, yeah. And Belinda's got an interesting question. She said, have you included or ignored COVID in your books? She's interested to know this because her daughter's wedding was held during COVID restrictions.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think it's been a big challenge for a lot of authors. I started writing this in 2019, so in my head all of the events were happening sort of 2018, 2019. And I think there's like a timestamp in the first chapter that it's 2019, so everything plays out before COVID, but I will have to think about how to address COVID in the next book because it'll be coming afterwards. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think in a lot of country communities they didn't face lockdowns in the same way that we
it wasn't
did
quite,
in the city, but I think obviously it still had a huge effect on everyone. It's a good question, still thinking about it.
And I'm interested to know how hard or easy it was to get Five Bush Weddings published.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I listen to a lot of interviews with other authors and I try to read pretty widely. But it's always hard to know how your experience compares to other people. But I think I've been pretty lucky. This is the first book that I've ever tried to write. And I think, you know, a lot of people, it takes them a few goes or they have a few, you know, drafts in the bottom drawer before they find a publisher. Yeah, to me, it was such an honour and a bit of a lovely surprise that publishers, you know, mostly based in Sydney or major cities, were interested in a book that was so specific to those regions where I grew up. And to me, it's a book very specifically about, you know, Western Queensland and towns like St George where I was born. And I just love that, you know, a big publishing house like Penguin thinks that story is worth, you know, everyone in Australia reading. Makes me really proud.
Yeah. And if you could be a character from your book for a day, who would you choose and why?
That's a great question. I think there's a lot of, from people who have read the book, there's a lot of love for Jono, which makes me really happy. But I think I would have to spend a day as Mabel or the Bush Telegraph, who is an older character that's, you know, Stevie also meets in the first chapter, and she's she's not in every chapter, but she's kind of working away in the background as a gossip / matchmaker / general pot stirrer. She knows what's going on with everyone, and, you know, I think for Stevie, she doesn't love it when she's the subject of Mabel's gossip, but you know, Mabel sees what she does as kind of a community service. A lot of those towns don't have newspapers anymore, so she thinks she's filling a need by spreading information.
And Rainey says she's really looking forward to finding out more about Charlie Jones. And Belinda wonders what you like to read, and I wondered if maybe there's something you've read lately that you could recommend to us.
Yes, I love to read, and I think I was a little bit of a reading snob before I realised the kind of book that I was writing, and I certainly read a lot more women's fiction and genre fiction and commercial books now than I used to, and my life is so much better for it. I've just finished, I got a stack out anticipating this question. I just finished this one, The Winter Dress by Lauren Chayton.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
It's a beautiful, sumptuous historical fiction that's obviously really impeccably researched, all about a dress that's found in a shipwreck off an island in Holland. Very cool. I really loved this book, 67 Days by Yvonne Weldon. That's sort of just a great love story, almost like Shakespearean in its scope, but all set in Redfern and Wiradjuri country.
Oh, okay.
So a beautiful First Nations voice, and Yvonne is a brilliant woman. So that's really cool. I adored and I love all of her work. Minnie Dark. This is her latest, With Love from Wish & Co. It came out the same day as Five Bush Weddings, and so I bought it the day it came out, and it's really, really wonderful. It's all about a woman called Marnie who runs, like, she has a business buying gifts for people.
Oh, okay.
And she has a terrible mix-up when one of her biggest clients has her buy an anniversary present for his wife and a birthday present for his mistress, and they get confused. I really loved, if you like young adult books, this is another new one that came out. Miranda Luby is an Instagram author friend of mine. This is called Sadie Starr's Guide to Starting Over, and it's all about perfectionism and black and white thinking and the impact that can have on young people. I think it sounds serious and it covers some serious topics, but she's done it with a really light touch. It's quite funny and very sweet, and I recommend that whether you are a young adult or an old adult. I enjoyed it, and I don't have it in front of me, but there's a romantic comedy called No Hard Feelings by Genevieve Novak, who's a Melbourne writer, and I just I think she's going to be a big star. I think it's great. It came out early this year. She's working on the follow-up now. It's very sharp, very funny. And while I don't have much experience personally online dating, I think she's really writing to that experience very well.
Yeah. Well, thanks for those recommendations. We always love getting
If I could just have a job where I recommend books for people, I would be so happy. If you ever want to know a book to read, please just message me on Instagram, and I would love to give some recommendations.
Yeah. That sounds like my perfect job too. And Liz says, I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce these right or not, but Liz says you mentioned the RE, Regatta, and is it Keiko in 5BW, which was your pub of preference.
I'm just looking at these comments, and I think this is my friend Liz from high school, and Liz was at all of those pubs with me. The RE, the Regatta, and the Caco, which is the Caxton on Caxton Street in Brisbane. I have very fond memories of all of them, but I have to say for you, Liz, our Sunday sessions at the RE, nothing will ever beat it. It's so weird to think now, I think we came of age at a time where there were camera phones and there was no social media. There's almost no photographic evidence of this part of our youth, which was a really fun time. But we would go out for a night out wearing a polo shirt and ruggers and thongs. We would not dress up, we would not wear makeup, we would have the best time. And I just think of all those beautiful young girls now who are getting dressed up to the nines. We got off lightly. We had such a good time. And we looked terrible, and no one will ever know.
And Liz says, thank goodness for that. I think there's a lot of people like me as well who are thankful that there weren't.
Oh, this is so good. I can see the comments now. I think there's a few of my old schoolmates.
Oh, really? That's good. And Kim wonders, was there anything that surprised you about writing a book?
That's a good question. It was a massive learning process. Parts of it felt really natural, and I really enjoyed the process, but it's a long process. And I think it was interesting. I was pregnant with my first child for a lot of the time that I was writing the first draft of the book, and she's more than 2 years old now. By the time the book is coming out, it's quite a longer gestation period for a book than for a human. And I think my journey was actually pretty quick compared to a lot of people. I guess the sheer amount of time involved, and also the number of people involved in bringing a book to life, I find really fascinating, because you're working on it alone for so long, and then once you do, I guess, make that deal with a publisher, there are a lot of editors involved. There are all the people working on the production side of things, the covers, the typesetting, and then all of the marketing and distribution and the people liaising with bookstores. There's just so many people working to make that dream kind of come true. And everyone that works with books is, without fail, just the loveliest people. It's just a real privilege to be part of it.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. And I'm wondering, like, as this is your first published book, how did the writers community embrace you
Well,
as
I'm
a
really...
new writer?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's early days, but I've been really grateful for Instagram and social media as a way to connect with other writers. I mean, I think I realised early on that the community was important, and doing the writing course that I did really gave me the structure that I needed, I think, to finish a book. But it also helped me meet girls who would go on to be my kind of writing group. Even the teacher that I had became my mentor. And you come to realise, like so much, like a lot of things in this world, it is a lot about who you know and how people know of you. And a lot of it is down to chance, but being, I guess, trying to reach out to a community around you can help you make the most of chances when you get them. So yeah, I found Instagram really great to connect with other writers like Miranda Luby, whose book came out the same day as mine. Even though we were in different genres and different places, it was great to be able to just kind of message her and say, how are you feeling about stuff, or what's happening for you now? And just kind of compare experiences. I don't know how people did it before Instagram. It must have been really lonely and quite scary.
And Wendy says you mentioned you had a day job, and she wonders if it's writing related.
Yeah, so my day job for a long time has been at the Walkley Foundation for Journalism. So you've probably heard of the Walkley Awards, which are the kind of highest awards for journalists in Australia. So I've worked there ever since I finished uni, basically, quite a long time. And yeah, usually we used to do a magazine that I worked in editorial on. I've done a lot of communications around press releases and writing scripts and speeches. We do photo exhibitions.
Excuse me.
Yeah, so I guess I've always worked with words. Oddly enough, never really worked as a daily reporting journalist, but I've done feature writing and freelance and communications. But yeah, so I guess writing has always been a thread, but it's been nice to write fiction again, which I didn't do for quite a long time.
Yeah, yeah. And do you have a favourite place to write?
I mean, I've finally kind of set up a writing desk at home here, although I'm now sharing it with my husband, who's studying online 3 nights a week. So we each have our keyboards that we swap out when we take our turn. But often I find sometimes it's great to be alone, and then other times having another like warm body near you also trying to write helps shame you into getting something done when you can't necessarily motivate yourself. So sometimes it's being at a cafe or a library with a friend.
With that, yeah. And without any spoilers, do you have a favourite part of Five Bush Weddings?
I have lots of favourite parts, but I think there's a scene that's fairly early on. So it's not a huge spoiler. I won't say what happens, but there's a scene that takes place after the pub shuts late at night, and 2 characters sneak around the back of the bakery and get some pies from the apprentice that's working there in the early hours of the morning. And I love that scene largely because I lived it in St George, and the first time someone showed me that you could go to the back of the bakery and get a pie in the middle of the night, I was just like, this is the best. I don't know if you can still do that. I should have checked when I was in town a few weeks ago. But yeah, that's really special to me. And I think, I don't think I could have made that up. I think that's something that I had to live, and I'm glad I kind of preserved it for the ages.
Yeah. And Belinda wonders how you chose your characters' names.
Another good question. Stevie Jean, I stole shamelessly. There's a cafe in St George, my hometown, called Stevie Jean's.
Okay, yeah.
I think poor Stevie Jean actually is a real person, the granddaughter of my next door neighbour growing up. I haven't met her. I hope she doesn't mind. It's just such a good name. Stevie, I guess, has all of those associations. Like there was Stevie on the Cloud's Daughters, Stevie Nicks. It's a bit rock and roll. It's a bit country. And then with Stevie G, that's just memorable. But all the others were kind of, they're a bit too ordinary maybe. Like there's nothing that really stands out. You've got a Jono, you've got a Tom, you've got a Jen, a Lily. They just all felt like real people that you would know.
Yeah. And Geraldine wonders if you're a plotter or a pantser.
I am a plotter. I like to write a plan before I start writing, but then I often find that I have to redo the plan a few times before I finish a draft, and especially when that magic happens when you're writing and the characters start saying and doing things of their own accord.
Yeah. And did you know, or did the ending change from what you thought it was going to be when you started?
I think I always knew that I wanted to have kind of everything coming back together at one big wedding in the end. So I think I was always heading towards that. And, with a rom-com, unless you're a real sadist, you're going to have two people fall in love at the end. And it's kind of more about the adventures that we go on to get there in between. Actually, I wrote like quite a bit of that final wedding scene. Probably, like I didn't write in a linear way. I wrote like the big love declaration kind of early on, and that was really helpful to kind of work towards as a sort of guiding light and figure out how the characters needed to change and what they needed to be challenged by to get to that point.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. It's been great chatting to you, and thanks for the questions people asked. We had some great questions.
Oh, great questions, great chat. Thank you, Jackie. It's been really fun, and I'm just really grateful to everyone who tuned in on Saturday night.
And do you want to let people know how they can keep in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm probably most active on Instagram. My handle is Clare Fletcher Writer. Or if you want to Google me, I do a monthly newsletter that you can sign up for on my website.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And I look forward to reading more of your blogs.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.